C.S. Lewis, An Experiment in Criticism, an early book of reader theory. C.S. Lewis says we usually judge people's reading by the sort of books they choose. So we categorize books and then we judge the reader by the books they've chosen. We say people have bad taste when they choose books that we consider poor. But would we get a different result if we reversed the process? What if we looked at how people read and then made a judgment on the books they've chosen? To examine reading, Lewis begins by dividing readers into two broad groups, the many and the few. And the first thing he notices is that the many will almost never reread anything. The easiest way to dismiss a possible book is that it's already been read. It's dead to them. But to the few, they love rereading. The second thing he notices is that although the majority may sometimes be frequent readers, they turn to it as a last resort. They abandon it as soon as an alternative pastime turns up. It's kept for railway journeys and illnesses and those odd moments of enforced solitude, or for the process called reading oneself to sleep. But literary people are always looking for leisure and silence in which to read, and they do so with their whole attention. When they are denied such attentive and undisturbed reading even for a few days, they begin to feel impoverished. Thirdly, the first reading of some great literary work is often, to literary people, an experience so momentous that only experiences of love, religion, or bereavement can furnish a standard of comparison. Their whole consciousness is changed. They have become what they were not before. But there's no sign of anything like this among the other sorts of readers. When they've finished a story or a novel, nothing much or nothing at all seems to have happened to them. It's pretty clear that the majority, if they could speak articulately, would not accuse us of liking the wrong books, but of making such a fuss about books at all. What we treat as a main ingredient in our well-being, to them, is something marginal. But why do these two groups read so differently? Lewis compares reading to viewing pictures. He states, Beatrix Potter's tales were the delight of my childhood. Arthur Rackham's The Ring, that of my school days. I have all these books still, and now when I turn to their pages, I by no means say, how did I ever enjoy such bad work? What surprises me is that I drew no distinctions in a work that varied so vastly in merit. It now stares me in the face that some of Beatrix Potter's plates you'll find witty drawing in pure colors, and others ugly, ill-composed. In Rackham, I now see admirable skies, trees, and grotesques, but observe that the human figures are often like dummies. How could I ever have failed to see this? I believe I can remember accurately enough to give the answer. He says, I liked Beatrix Potter's illustrations at a time when the idea of humanized animals fascinated me, perhaps even more than it fascinates most children. And I liked Rackham's at a time when Norse mythology was the chief interest of my life. Clearly, the pictures of both artists appealed to me because of what was represented. They were substitutes. If, at one age, I could have seen humanized animals, or at another, really have seen Valkyries, I would greatly have preferred it. Similarly, I admired the pictures of a landscape only if, and only because, it represented a country such as I would have liked to walk through in reality. A little later, I admired a picture of a woman only if, and only because, it represented a woman who would have attracted me if she were really present. The result, as I now see, was that I attended very inadequately to what was actually before me. It mattered intensely what the picture was of, but hardly at all what the picture actually was. Once it set my emotions and imagination to work on the things depicted, it had done what I wanted. Prolonged and careful observation of the picture itself was not necessary and might have even hindered the subjective activity. Lewis compares this use of art to a child's relationship to a beloved toy. He writes, the teddy bear exists in order that the child may endow it with imaginary life and personality and enter into a quasi-social relationship with it. That's what playing with it means. The better this activity succeeds, the less the actual appearance of the object will matter. Too close or prolonged attention to its changeless and expressionless face impedes the play. Real appreciation demands the opposite process. We must not let loose our own subjectivity upon the pictures. We must begin by laying aside all our own preconceptions, interests, and associations. We must make room for Botticelli's Mars and Venus, or Cimabue's Crucifixion, by emptying out our own. After the negative effort, the positive. We must use our eyes. We must look, and we must go on looking until we have certainly seen exactly what is there. We sit down before the picture in order to have something done to us, not that we may do things with it. The first demand any work of art makes upon us is surrender. Look, listen, receive. Get yourself out of the way. When the many read, the reading ignores nearly all that the words before him are doing. He wants to know what happened next. He reads only narrative because only there will he find the event. He's deaf to the oral side of what he reads because rhythm and melody do not help him to discover who married, rescued, robbed, raped, or murdered whom. He likes the comic strips, almost wordless films, because in them nothing stands between him and the event. And he likes speed because a very swift story is all events. It will be seen that all the experiences on which our judgments are based depend on taking the words seriously. But the unliterary reader never intends to give the words more than the bare minimum of attention necessary for extracting the event. Most of the things which good writing gives or bad writing fails to give are things he does not want and has no use for. This explains why he does not value good writing, but it also explains why he prefers bad writing. In the picture stories of the comic strips, really good drawing is not only not demanded, but it would be an impediment. For every person or object must be instantly and effortlessly recognizable. The pictures are not there to be fully looked at, but to be understood as statements. They are only 1 degree removed from hieroglyphics. Now words, for the unliterary reader, are in much the same position. The hackneyed cliché for every appearance or emotion is for him the best, because it is immediately recognizable. My blood ran cold is a hieroglyph for fear. Any attempt, such as a great writer might make, to render this fear concrete in its full particularity is a double choke pear to the unliterary reader. It offers him what he doesn't want, and offers it only on the condition of his giving to the words a kind and degree of attention he does not intend to give. It's like trying to sell him something he has no use for, at a price he does not wish to pay. Good writing may offend him by being either too spare for his purpose or too full. A woodland scene by D.H. Lawrence or a mountain valley by Ruskin gives him far more than he knows what to do with. On the other hand, he would be dissatisfied with "I was terribly afraid" instead of "my blood ran cold." To the good reader's imagination, such statements of bare facts are often the most evocative of all. But the moon shining clear is not enough for the unliterary. They would rather be told that the castle was bathed in a flood of silver moonlight. This is partly because their attention to the words they read is so insufficient. Everything has to be stressed or written up, or it will be barely noticed. But still more, they want the hieroglyph, something that will release their stereotyped reactions to moonlight. What they demand is a decent pretense of description and analysis, not to be read with care, but sufficient to give them the feeling that the action's not going on in a vacuum. Such passages are to them what the backcloth is to most theater goers. No one's going to pay any real attention to it, but everyone would notice its absence if it weren't there. This small book has a lot to say about reading and different types of readers. I can't recommend it highly enough.